Yep, as you can probably tell, there's a little bit of a difference in camera here. This is actually the camcorder I'm using of um, instead of this. The reason being is because, well, apparently my unlimited time limit is back on the thing. I guess deleting a video with the opening movies of Capcom's Marvel vs. Capcom 3 helps out. But anyway, as you can see above, I'm here to read off Sonic the Hedgehog 231 Dan Drazen's review. That's right, Dan Drazen's review. I'm here to read off. So I hope you all enjoy, and if I can, maybe I'll get to 232. But let's start with 231, shall we? And it's about 3:06 p.m. in the afternoon here on this TGIF Friday. Alright, Sonic the Hedgehog 231, January 2012 release. Ben Bates cover, Sonic gets a case of deja vu as he relives the opening cutscene from Sonic Unleashed, where he gets sucked out of the Eggman's flagship. But that's not the biggest thing on Sonic's mind, as Mech Sal looms large in his thoughts and on the cover. Alright, now we get to the title of the issue, Lost in the Moment. Story by Ian Flynn, art by Ben Bates, ink by Terry Austin, color Matt Herms, lettering John E. Workman, editor Paul Kaminsky, editor-in-chief Victor Golis, the droid you're looking for, Mike Perithro. Now, here we go. This is Dan Drazen's commentary or review, if you will. This is one reunion that isn't doing anything for me. As Sonic meets Mecha Sal, Eggman, however, is amused despite being more than a little banged up. He ignores his first impulse to be rid of both of them, which would have meant that the dog would be unemployed. Instead, Sal just dumps her old boyfriend, literally. The dog's good mood quickly goes sour when Sniffly checks in to tell him that the Chaos Emerald is missing. I'm guessing it gave its all and I'm guessing it gave its all and vaporized when Sal had Nicole cross-rile the roboticizer. But that's just me. As a constellation, Eggman deploys the team of Titan and Deadly Cuddles, about whom more later. To the surprise of absolutely no one who glanced at the cover, Sonic's free fall is interrupted by Tails' flying chase in the tornado. Sonic isn't very forthcoming with Tails concerning Sally's fate. As for Nagas, he's busy having an episode, about which more later. Meanwhile, the Death Egg 2 drops what looks like a large basketball, since it's Titan Metal Sonic. A seriously upsized Metal Sonic, not to be confused with Metal Sonic. The ball shape is a hedgehog thing. As much as Eggman isn't crazy about the name Mecha Sally, I don't care for Titan Metal Sonic. I don't care much for Titan Metal Sonic. So I'm going to refer to him as Hogzilla for the duration, which won't be long. Naturally, the spectacle of Hogzilla freaks out the Mobians. This includes Bunny, who takes to the skies to deal with it. So does Nagas, coming off his episode sounding more territorial than altruistic. Okay, at this point the action gets confusing, so here's what I was able to figure out by jumping ahead a few pages. Well, the populace flees Hogzilla. While the populace flees Hogzilla, Bunny and Nagas don't seem to be able to face him with the attacks. Instead, Nagas unleashes a serious dose of chaos energy, turning Hogzilla into a crystallized gold. In the course of the attack, Bunny unfortunately becomes collateral damage, or whatever you want to call it. Collateral damage. On the Death Egg Bridge, panic reigns and Mecha Sally appears to be the only one not freaking out. Eggman then orders the Egg Annihilator beam be fired up and aimed at New Mobotropolis. The beam is deployed. Nagus tells Hogzilla crystallized Golem to die like a Mobian, then ducks and covers. And the Titan Hog/Golem goes to pieces after all 4 pages or so. Cream spots where Bunny went down, suffering from a severe case of whatever King Max was suffering from back when his body was partially crystallized. Cream also succumbs to the charms of Deadly Cuddles, also the Tail Star, about which much more, and he puts in caps here, much more later. When the EAB was discharged, it didn't just write Hogzilla out of the story, it managed to damage both the Tornado and the Freedom Fighter Special. Sonic still wants to pursue Eggman and rescue Sally, but Amy Rose drapes herself all over him, claiming he's in no condition to continue. Antoine, meanwhile, looks like he wants to tear Jeffrey a couple of new bodily orifices. So let's review. New Mobotropolis has suffered major damage from the Titan/Hog/Golem, and again from its destruction. Nagus took Bunny out of commission, and what are the Mobians doing? Acclaiming Nagus as the new ruler. It makes about as much sense as anything else that's happened as far as during the Republican primary. Get the comparison there? I'm sorry for the dog in the background. I don't know why our neighbors let him bark a lot. That should limit the barking. Okay, so you kind of saw the comparison there. He basically said it makes as much sense. He's basically saying that the citizens just coming out of the blue and proclaiming Nagus as their king makes just as much sense as the Republican primary at that time when he did this review. So, there you go with that. Now, continuing on, we look at the head count. Well, not the head count, but the head score. We look at the individual scores he gives for head, which is like the focus, eye, and the heart, if you will, of the story. So, let's take a look at the head score, which takes, I don't know how many pages it takes. Trying to see here. Oh, it goes. Oh, head score is 7. He gives the head score 7, basically the focus of the story 7. So that's pretty good, I guess. It's almost 10. But here's his head observation. His observation for his head score of the story. It looks like Sally getting roboticized is only the beginning of the fun and games. Eggman is still on the warpath, and Nagus is in the game as well. He's not exactly in concert with the Mobians, or does he have the best interest at heart, or what passes for a heart in this case. It's not really clear whether his command, serve your new master, was his way of ordering Hogzilla to take a bullet for the Mobians, but that was the end result. Since he is at the center of the backstory, we'll deal more with him later. And again, like I said yesterday in the other read-offs of Dan Drazen's reviews, the link will be provided in the description box, and you can read the backstory, his review on the backstory there. This is just mainly to focus on the main story. Okay, continuing on, I quote Dan Drazen's head observation for his head score. I get the feeling that Ian is bringing in all sorts of twists and turns in this story on the way to 250. Examples, the Tails doll. I needed to go to Know Your Meme to get some background on him. The Tails doll, which would never have passed quality control at a local Build-A-Bear franchise, started life as one of the 6 unlockable players in the Sonic's R game in 1997. Unlike his namesake, Tails, they couldn't even be bothered with animating him. He more or less floated simply enough through the game, accompanied on the soundtrack by a forgettable piece of J-pop. Can You Feel the Sunshine, which played over and over and over again. Fast forward to 2005, when Sonic R was re-released for the GameCube, and the Tails doll was rediscovered by an internet savvy generation of players. The creepiness factor of the lipness of the character combined with the nerve-ending song nudged the character into associations not so much with J-pop as with J-horror. It became an urban legend, or at least was associated with older legends, e.g., example, Mary Worthy. The Know Your Meme database contains a collection of 79 images of the Tails doll, many of them blood-streaked and dagger-toothed, and looking like something out of the Chucky movie franchise. The site has also had 58,000 visits, which is a respectable number. To put it in perspective, however, as of this writing, the KYM site for My Little Pony, Friendship and Magic, has over 4.9 million, and he puts in caps million on that, right there. 4.9 million visits and contains 35,000 images. But hey, I'm a Sonic fan and a brony, so it's all good. So far, I can't see any reason for the Tails doll to surface outside of being an in-joke for the fans. One detail got slipped in near the end, which is setting something up for down the road, but I'm not sure. Okay, quoting Dan again here, Dan Drazen, in his review of 231. One detail got slipped in near the end, which is setting something up for down the road, but I'm not sure what. As Sonic and the gang walk past the crystal remains of the Hogzilla golem, Sonic notices something out of place. A tuft of real grass. Apparently, nanite grass is easily distinguishable from the real deal. A point that hasn't exactly been belabored before, and which belongs to the blink and you'll miss it category here. Basically, it's like the tiniest detail. Like if you go down on the ground here and you say, oh, it's all artificial. Like let's say you go to a baseball stadium or a stadium or something that's all artificial turf. And then all of a sudden you're just walking past one part of the turf and you're looking down and you're like, well, wait a minute. That's not artificial, that's real. Get what I'm saying? That's basically like it kind of like, to paraphrase Angry Joe, when he did his review for Connect Star Wars, and he mentioned at the end the galactic dance-off mode, he said basically it's the kind of thing that you have to like take a second glance at. Like you're walking by and you turn your head and all like, huh? And all of a sudden you go back and like, huh? What did I just see? It's kind of like what Dan's describing here, the blink and you'll miss it department. Basically you're walking by and all of a sudden you see something that's out of place. That's what it is. Okay, continuing on. And I quote Dan Drazen here. Whether this means that Gaia/Chip from Sonic Unleashed is going to make an appearance? I don't know. Whether it means anything, and he puts that in caps, anything, in the scheme of things with the story arc, I don't know. Ian isn't aiming for a swift resolution of anything here. I apologize for the lag in getting these past few issues reviewed. So I know that Bunny's fate. So I know that Bunny's fate and that of Hershey will be dealt with in the next few issues. We're at a dangerous point, however. If Ian throws too much into the plot, it could get away from him. The rule for seasoning food is you can always add, but you can never subtract. The comic book corollary to that, though the comic book corollary to that rule is you can always add, and thanks to some loose continuity, you can then ignore. But don't get me started on loose continuity. Head score 7, which apparently is good. The art. This is what he thinks about the art. And this is an I score. Ben Bates' artwork is good, and it's nice to see him using little touches like the Sonic logo to distinguish or to designate the pinpoint Sonic falling from the Death Egg. He also relies on an appropriate chaotic page layout during the attack scenes. I score 9. Heart. Aside from Sally's bot dumping Sonic, the major heart moment is when Bunny got clipped by Narcus and came down with Max Acorn Syndrome. This isn't exactly a positive development, but nobody outside of the Freedom Fighters seems to have noticed. For the populace, it was enough that Narcus took care of Hogzilla in the Egg Annihilator beam, with some not so subtle digs at Nicole in the process. But Bunny will be more of the focus in the next issue, in the same way that Narcus is the focus of the next story. Heart score 8. So basically he gives us about, let's see, 9 and 7 is about what? 16? And 8 is 14, so well, basically you add 8 to that, so you're looking at 24 he's giving. So 24, overall score of 24 he gives to the main story of Sonic 231. Now, this is what I was talking about with Dan the other day. Dan is the kind of person that will, and this is the truth, that will, not hold any punches back. He'll come straight at you and say, look, this is that, this is how I look at it, this is how I feel about it, this is the way I think it could go, and that's it. Because like I said yesterday, Dan Drazen, being who he is, I mean, the guy's 60 years old. Oh, so what does that tell you? The guy's in the same age range as my parents. My parents, thank you. And I have all the respect for this guy for everything he's gone through. I have all the respect for him. I have all the respect for the fact that he's somebody that comes out at his age and does this. But again, what I'm saying, folks, is what he does is he distinguishes things and he points out certain things that could play a role in upcoming issues or in the story arc. Now, what does that mean? Well, the one thing he talks about is the grass situation. Kind of being in the category of blink and you'll miss it. Or take a second look and you'll be like, well, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. That's basically what he's pointing at. He's saying, just by that subtle hint there, we're going to get some kind of, something's going to be built out of that. Like, down the line, we're going to start seeing things just like this occurring. And maybe it's going to wake Sonic up and realize, you know what? Maybe this isn't the world I was in. Maybe this isn't really the prime universe. Now what could that mean? Well, I guess like Dan Drazen has said in some ways, we don't know, but we're going to find out. And it's going to have to, and from what he could tell, it's going to play a major role. So that's all I'm going to say for 231. The link will be down in the description box, and I'll be back later. I'm going to let this battery charge.